Hi, Vinnie. It's really great to be with you today. I'm James Cramer. I am the founder and co-CEO of Zimmet, and really excited to tell you all about what we're doing in the market.
James, thank you for being on the show. Look forward to it.
So, when we think about Zimmet, right? Zimmet is a configure price quote solution, or a CPQ solution, as it's often referred to. What makes us a real standout in our category is that we concentrate on the enterprise services market. And for those for your listeners that know something about CPQ, what they would also know is that it's a category of software that has largely emerged to handle pricing and quoting for product-centric markets. And that's, that there's a big market there, and that is a very much a need in the world. But that has, as the services economy has continued to grow and continued to be a more dominant force in the economy at large, particularly in the enterprise market, that has left that market without any real dedicated pricing applications and quoting applications. And so what we generally see is our quoting teams out there that just really don't have any sort of quoting solutions. And so the result is, largely about 98% or something like that of these folks are using spreadsheets and manually created Word documents in order to get quotes out the door. Now, in a very small business, that's probably fine. But as you get to scale, even a few hundred employees and above, this causes real operational challenges in the business. And the folks, Zimmet emerged from those of us who lived in this market for 15 or 20 years and felt the operational challenges that this causes. And the gap here really prevents you from seeing resource demand. It prevents you from having consistent quotes, accurate quotes, and fast quotes. And so the two markets that we're talking about when we say services are really services companies, but also embedded services teams. So an example would be a large technology company that sells software or hardware or both, but also has a large services component inside their company. Yep. And of course, the services companies would be companies that are dedicated to the actual delivery of the services as a whole. Now, this can cut across many different industries and verticals and sub-verticals, certainly IT, which we're all most familiar with, but it could also be architectural, it could be marketing services companies, and so forth and so on. It's, many hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue just in the United States. And, we're here to help them solve their quoting challenges. So in general, when you look across the industry, you see a consistent gap. And this is the gap that I've been referring to. So to the left of us, we generally will see Salesforce or occasionally Microsoft Dynamics, but essentially companies have adopted CRM technologies. On the right of us, they have also adopted ERP or professional service automation technology in the form of Workday or Financial Force and others that may offer similar solutions. But in the middle of that process, when they're trying to go from an opportunity to essentially a project or an order or a quote or a budget on their ERP side, they are traveling through often a jungle of spreadsheets and manually created Word documents. And this is really the gap that we see consistently across the industry.
Okay.
And so what Zimmet is really here to do, our customers buy Zimmet for a couple of very specific reasons. First and foremost is to make quoting fast and accurate. They are looking for a significant increase in speed. Not, there's a lot of statistics on this in the market about how long it takes the average company to get a services proposal out the door. And it ranges by subvertical, but it's anywhere from about 3 or 4 days up to about 30 days for companies to get proposals out the door. So it is not fast, and it's not improving. It is barely budged in the last decade. So our goal is to significantly increase the speed and accuracy of the quoting process by a factor of, say, 10, so we can turn days into minutes. And there's probably a secondary reason that companies buy Zimmet, which is the ability to take the quoting process and integrate it to the rest of the operation, so that you can update your opportunity in Salesforce, and you can also have visibility to the resource demand that your customers are expecting should you win these deals.
So James, a question. So, services proposal, I used to be at Pricewaterhouse.
Sure.
The quote obviously is one part, but you had a lot of resumes and references and methodologies. Mm-hmm. Does this primarily focus on pricing, or is it a complete proposal generator?
Yeah, it's a complete proposal generator as well. So we handle both the pricing, all of the math side, work breakdown structures, tasks, timeline, roles, items, third-party cost, pass-through expenses, everything on a quote, even if there are multiple services being sold, say professional services, plus
Right.
education services, plus managed services, but also the documents, one or many documents, statements of work, proposals, order documents, all simultaneously.
Okay.
So in terms of where we fit in terms of the functionality, right? So, and this is sort of what you were just asking about, Vinny. We sit in between the CRM and ERP, but when you break that out, so inside of Zimmet, what are the functions, right, that we provide? So it is absolutely a pricing application first and foremost. You got to come up with what it's going to cost and what your margins would be, et cetera. But it's also the document automation specific to that quoting exercise. It's also all of the approvals thereof. One of the challenges companies have is, boy, they are slinging spreadsheets and Word documents, often in different emails to different people, just to get an approval out the door. This is very difficult for companies to change. So if you want to change your approval process, if you introduce new services, you maybe they go to a different set of approvers and so forth. This slows down the approval process tremendously, and adds to that timeline it takes to get quotes out the door. And then last but not least, we are an API first. We sit in between other applications. So one of the main reasons companies buy Zimit is to integrate this data and have it fully automated with the CRM system and the ERP system in real time. So I thought what I would do, Vinny, is show you the application, show you our solution, because I think for your listeners, particularly those that come from services and have an interest in this area, seeing our product answers a lot of questions because it's very intuitive. The way the product is designed to work almost always makes immediate sense to folks that do this for a living. So I thought that may be helpful to spend just a few minutes on that. So what you'll notice on the left-hand side of the screen is what we call guided selling. It's really all of the inputs. And the inputs can be anything our users choose them to be. It's completely set up by our customers. There's no coding in Zimmet. So everything that you could possibly want in terms of, what's in the scope of my deal. Am I selling software? Do I have professional services, managed services? Whatever my catalog that is included, I can basically insert in this section. And as you'll notice, as I add more or turn things on or off, I will see additional selections that have become available. And so in this example, I'm going to add professional services just as a simple scenario. Let me see here. So I'm going to open this up and I'm going to say that my start date is going to be, let's say April, maybe the 29th of March. And I'm going to say that I've got some scope here. These are just inputs that would drive a level of effort. Every customer has different things that drive their level of effort. In this example, we're going to implement content management system. So we're trying to feed it information that would determine the level of effort on our scope. So I'm going to say that I've got 2 templates and 2 documents that I need to set up. And I'm going to go ahead and apply this. And what you'll notice on the right-hand side is a very different looking CPQ. First of all, you'll see a time dimension. And so I'm going to go ahead and apply this. And what you'll notice is that Zimmet, using very simple rules, will automatically insert basically the labor and the hours over the various stages of the project automatically. And these rules are very easy to set up, and they can be as sophisticated as you choose. Our customers include very large companies like Workday and Dell and Siemens and places like that, where they have real legitimate complexity. So we can handle, very intricate calculations and logic and things of that nature when that's called for. But essentially, Zimmet has the ability to take labor over time and distribute it in any capacity we choose. So for example, in this case, let's imagine that my requirement stage here is 3 weeks long. But if we come back and say that instead of 2 templates, we're going to need 6 templates, then we may say, well, we're going to need an additional length of time. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this. And what you'll notice is that the requirement stage now elongates automatically, and the resource allocation from the project manager went from 20 hours to 40 hours. So we can control this any way we want. We can change timeline, we can add labor, we can take labor away. And in this example, I'm just peanut buttering 40 hours across each week, but we could make each week different, we can make each role different, et cetera. And you'll notice that I've got training, and so I've got some labor that is unique to the training stage. Now, some of our customers don't even use a stage-based concept. They use more of a bottoms-up, task-centric, work breakdown-centric type of approach. So if I were to select that, I can automatically convert this to a work breakdown structure. So what you'll notice is Zimmet will now flip this into a work breakdown structure. So the same stages, but now at a far more granular level of role and task. And to sort of give you a visual of what Zimmet is doing, if I open this up and say, for example, I can view this in months or weeks or stages, I can view this any way I choose.
And you can integrate with Microsoft Project.
You can export to Microsoft Project. You can export to your PSA applications, which very much see the world in a similar way, roles and skills and hours and stages and tasks, etc. So to show you what this is doing, a good way to visualize what Zimmet is doing is I'm going to show you this picture. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go change my scope. So instead of 6, let's go back to 2. What you'll notice is the labor over these tasks over that timeline will automatically change again. So watch how it will flex automatically. So I can change much like a project plan, but with a scoping centric sort of view of the world. Now, what I'm going to do is to show you the flexibility of the product, and what customers really are desperate for is, let me add an additional service to this. So I've got professional services on my quote. Let me add managed services. Maybe this is an upsell. We want to increase our attach rates. So I've now added managed services as an option. In this example, we're going to resell an AWS environment, and we're going to manage that environment. So I've got the cost of AWS that I'm going to uplift, and I've also got labor. But what I want to do is I don't want to charge for labor in AWS separately. I just want to give the customer a flat fee per month every month. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to say I want a production environment. Number of environments is 1 for 12 months, let's say, and I can either call an API here if I've got access to a calculator on AWS, or I can just type in that I think it's going to be about $1,500. I'll say that I want a 35% margin. So I'm going to take my cost and I'm going to back into my margin, and I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And what you'll notice is that Zimmet will now drop in my price per month for managed services. I still have a task structure if I want it, but I've got my labor summary. I've got labor here, but I've also got my fees for my AWS for production. And you'll notice that goes out over 12 months.
Customer won't see the margin, the proposal won't have, okay.
No, it won't have any of that. In fact, if I come back and change anything, let's say I make this 6 months and I make this, say, June 1st, and I go ahead and apply this, what you'll notice is that Zimmet will automatically shrink that and give us a whoops, that's 16 months. Let's make it 6 months. And go ahead and apply that. And you'll notice that Zimmet will shrink that now to a 6-month deal automatically. And so we can just keep going on and on and on here with all the different things we can do. We can look at price, we can look at cost, we can look at the quantity of what we're selling, we can look at FTEs, we can view this in months or stages.
If you're proposing a fixed price contract, you could build all this detail and then quote them something.
Yeah, we can even switch pricing models on the fly and go back and forth between them. Okay. So if I determine a fixed price project's the way to go, and I select that, what it will basically do is it will take all of my cost, obviously keep that, and then it'll ask me, how much do you want the project to be? And it will tell me, if you notice in the top right-hand corner, I'm tracking our price, any discounts that I've applied, the net price, cost, margin, et cetera, et cetera. And we can even back in and have a margin target if we choose to.
Any outcome-based proposals you've done?
Yeah, a lot of them. So we see that more and more. That is generally controlled over here. So it's an approach to pricing as opposed to a mathematical approach to pricing. It's let me determine what the outcomes are going to be, and then I will determine what my price is going to be on a certain outcome and things of that nature. But we do see that quite often as well. So let me switch to the other side of the quote that you had asked about, which is the documentation, right? So what I'm going to do is show first and foremost a statement of work. And what you'll notice here is everything that I've put in red is being automatically updated. So I've got a combination of boilerplate language that describes our approach, but things that are unique to every deal are things like my start date, the duration that you see, any certain training approach, the number of templates, you see number 2 here. So if I were to go change this automatically, it would update. So if I say this is going to be 6, and this is, well, let's just leave it at that. Let me make it 6. and go ahead and apply this, what you'll notice is the document will update automatically. And now we've got 6 and 6.
Neat.
I've got a managed services section inside, and I've also got all of my pricing updates automatically. So notice that my pricing's 556,000 and I've got managed services. Let's do two things. Let's take managed services totally out of scope. And let's go back to 2 templates, which reduces the price of our services. So I'm going to remove managed services from the pricing, from the content, and I'm also going to update the pricing on my professional services. So let's do that. And so what you'll notice now is the content related to managed services has been completely removed. The table related to managed services has been completely removed. And now my professional services has been reduced to 245,000. If I made a mistake, the customer said, hey, I still want to buy the managed services, I can just turn that back on, see if there's any additional changes I need to make on my inputs, otherwise apply it, and automatically managed services shows back up and my pricing's restated automatically. So what I just went through, often in just a few minutes, this is a very simple example, but what I just went through, I've added professional services with a work breakdown structure and managed services in a recurring monthly approach, using a target margin to get there, backing into my price. And I just completed a statement of work, all without having to type anything in just a few minutes. That would have taken the average team, 2 or 3 days to get through in various cuts and pastes and whatnot. What would typically happen at this stage, and multiple people can work on this simultaneously, that's the other difference. So we're like Google in the sense that you can log in and have more than one person working at a time. So what would traditionally happen at this point is we would submit this for approval, and we can use any data in our application, whether it's price or discount or any information coming from the opportunity, the customer, the region, all of the above, risk profiles, anything that we've captured, we can use that to route for approvals dynamically. And every time that information changes, let's say you send it to the customer and they come back and they want to change something, at that point, if we change our quote and we no longer need certain people to be on the approval list, we can automatically pick that up and route to the right people automatically and get away from spreadsheets and emailing people Word documents and things of that nature. And upon approval in Zimmet, it would automatically update the CRM opportunity, the amounts, a summary of what has been sold, hours, duration, start dates, margin, et cetera. But it would also include any documents that have been produced. So if there's a statement of work or a proposal, that's automatically sent to the opportunity in Salesforce for the rep to pick it up and go deliver it to the customer. So it's a fairly integrated approach.
What are you finding, James? Are you finding interest in the technology sector? Obviously every manufacturer, every company is looking at service revenues. Are you finding interest away from the technology sector also?
We are. So we're seeing a lot of interest in the marketing services industry. We're seeing, because it's a very similar type of model, they are selling labor and expertise in various shapes and sizes and packaging. We're also seeing architectural, we're seeing translation services, you name it. I mean, all sorts of stuff. The services economy is just enormous. It's I spent 20 years in the IT, one piece of the IT services market. Yeah. And when we started Zimmet, we started to we thought we understood services, right? We see the world through our own lens. And what I have discovered is that everywhere you look, there's services. There's just services on top of services on top of services. And even in technology, for every dollar of technology that is sold, there's $5 to $7 of services that surround that, from education, deployments, managed services, maintenance, upgrades. There's just a lot of services that are surrounding these technologies. So while technology tends to be the anchor of our customer base, it's certainly not limited to that.
This has come a long way. I'm going to date myself, but in 2000, me and a co-founder, we set up a services marketplace. Not an individual at a time. This was a project, systems integration marketplace. So we were very ambitious for 2000.
Yeah.
We were trying to standardize the buying of SAP projects, PeopleSoft projects, and so on.
Yes.
So we built buy-side tools and sell-side tools. So buy-side tools were planning and templates and estimates that we had on If you're doing a PeopleSoft general ledger project, it should be this much, right?
Yes.
For the sales side, we built a proposal engine. We actually packaged a proposal engine, pretty primitive for back then.
Mhm.
God, I wish we had something like this.
Well, we get asked that question a lot. We get asked the question, particularly from investors. Why now? Why will companies spend money on this now? And the real answer, the practical answer, is that everything in the neighborhood that in the quote to cash journey, there's still incremental improvements to be made, but a lot of it has been solved. They have CRM systems, they have professional service automation platforms. Those technologies are available and widely adopted. And so if you think of it as a racetrack, companies had a lot of speed bumps on their racetrack. And so no one speed bump stood out, particularly quoting. But as you remove the speed bumps in CRM and opportunity management and in your back-end accounting, the speed bump that remains is quoting. And you can't go from an opportunity to an invoice to a customer without passing through quoting. And companies do what the companies have always done with technology, which is remove speed bumps so they can improve the speed and agility of their businesses. And that probably defines more than anything the interest and why we've gotten off to such a great start.
And back then, systems integrators still pretended that it was a value selling handshake business. So they were very cynical of anything digital.
Yes.
It's a different world now.
Yes. And the nature of services has changed quite a lot since that time. I was right in the middle of that market in 2000 and running a system integrator. So I really was close to that business and knew it well and know exactly what you're referring to. And if you look at services today, there's some of that remains, but the services market, particularly in technology, has become a very, very different animal. The projects have become shorter. Visibility to resource demand is vastly more important than it ever was before. Margins have become compressed. Resources are often working across multiple projects simultaneously in different capacities. The expectation of the buyer has changed, outcome-based, consumption-based models. The world has changed. And that speed bump that we refer to is probably something that most companies will need to deal with to remain competitive, just like they've dealt with the speed bumps that came before us. Yeah, so we when we went to market, we really tried to focus on the large enterprise market for a number of reasons. First, those are the companies that have the biggest pain point in this area and have the most to gain from solving it. They're also the most sophisticated buyer, and so they understand that this problem is not easily solved and there are not many options out there. So we have been very fortunate. We have really, people talk about partnering with their customers all the time, almost to the point of being cliche. But I think if you were to talk to the customers we've worked with, it has very much been a partnership in terms of how do we solve this problem? How does the world look in services different in the future than it does today? And so, Workday was a great example of that. They're, of course, an investor in Zimmet, but they first were a customer of Zimmet. And so they run their services portfolio, which is fairly significant business at that point globally on our platform, as does Dell. We have partnered very closely with the Dell enterprise business, which has sophisticated operation and is a real growth engine inside of Dell. Dell is very savvy about how it approaches its market in terms of not just selling technology, but services that partner with that technology to provide the most value to their customer. And so we have really partnered with Dell. But another good example would be WPP. You'd asked earlier about, is technology really the anchor, or is that where you're getting most of your traction? WPP is, is one of the largest marketing services companies in the world, an incredibly impressive company to work with, and ginormous in scale. And influential in their market, and very different look and feel than what you see in IT, but services and skills nonetheless, and very large programs that they deliver. But what's been very interesting is as we've worked our way into the medium market to work with companies like Digia in Finland. They're the largest Microsoft reseller in Finland. Carousel Industries, one of the larger Cisco, Avaya resellers. They're a VAR, and they do a really amazing job of not just selling the equipment, but also providing the services that go with that equipment, which has come to define that VAR market largely. And so, we have really gotten off to a good start by finding companies that are really actively looking to solve this problem, both at the very large global enterprise market, but also the medium enterprise market as well.
So in Workday, are you primarily working with their professional services group or their partners, or what are you doing at Workday?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So it's their professional services team, but it's also the ancillary services, education services, and things of that nature. Everything that's not their technology is what is on the Zimmet platform. But also in their Workday has a very robust partner ecosystem, and one of their partners on the far right here is Alight. So Alight also runs our platform. And just recently, Alight decided that we would become the single platform for the entire organization. And Alight now is, in the $3 to $4 billion range, right? So it's a significant business, really doing some very interesting things in their market. They are a Workday partner, but they have an even broader portfolio serving a multitude of segments on the HCM market, et cetera, payroll outsourcing, things of that nature, health and wellness of the employee, things of that nature.
Any industrial clients with service arms of industrial clients? Or
yeah, Siemens is probably the closest example of that, because they really do sell into the industrial market, automotive market, and so forth. So we're working with the PLM division of Siemens, which is their Team Center and some of those products that really that are some of the most well-known products in that space. And so they run our product as well. And so what's interesting about Zimmet and what's interesting about this customer list that I pulled together is these are completely different scenarios. So the Workday Professional Services and Education looks like any embedded services team. But when you get to Dell, it's a totally different look and feel. They serve a different market for different reasons. It's a much higher volume business, serving the infrastructure technology that they sell. So very different types of skills, very different looking quotes, very global in nature. When you get to WPP, they're not even selling technology at all in the classic sense of the word. And when you get over to, say, Alight, they've got outsourcing businesses and business process outsourcing and things of that nature, in addition to advisory and implementation services. So very, very different. When you get down to like Carousel, that includes the hardware and the services that are often bundled together or sold as a subscription type of model. So completely different use cases, but nonetheless a very good, example of Zimit's capabilities and what we mean as a service.
I can see how a product-centric CPQ would not work in this sector. You're doing a lot of different scenarios. So James, I got to ask you, do you get confused with my wife calls him Madman Jim.
I thought about adding some bells and whistles to this question. Everybody, if I had a nickel for every time I've been asked about that, I probably wouldn't need to run Zimmet. It's funny. I like to joke that I'm slightly less annoying and significantly less wealthy. So maybe that's the real answer. I'm not sure.
But James, you're across the state from me. Come on over sometime, and we'll show you our part of the wonderful place we call Florida. This is great. Any final thoughts?
No, I just, Vinnie, I really appreciate all the content and writing that you do and the research that you do. I have consumed a lot of it in the past few days. And, I think I speak for the market when I say thanks for all of that. And please continue doing it.
Hey, you guys do the work. I just talk about it. So thank you for being an entrepreneur and pushing the ball forward.
My pleasure. Thanks for being with you today.
Thank you.